Air superiority has always been the decisive variable in any conflict on the Korean Peninsula. Geography alone explains why. Seoul lies less than 50 kilometers from the demilitarized zone, leaving almost no strategic depth. In such conditions, control of the air in the first 48 to 72 hours is not a supporting task, but the foundation upon which all other military operations depend. For South Korea, the question is no longer whether it can defeat North Korea in the air, but whether it can sustain air superiority in a far more complex regional environment where China increasingly shapes the battle space. The Republic of Korea Air Force has been built with this reality in mind. On paper, it fields roughly 410 to 430 combat aircraft. But the true strength of the force lies in quality and integration rather than sheer numbers. Its core consists of around 40 F-35A fifth-generation fighters, approximately 60 F-15K Slam Eagles optimized for long-range strike, and roughly 120 F-16C and D aircraft that are undergoing phased upgrades with active electronically scanned array radars and modern avionics. Added to this mix is the KF-21 Boramae, a program that has moved decisively from concept to reality. 6 flying prototypes have already completed more than 1,000 test sorties, and the first operational batch of 40 aircraft is scheduled to enter service between 2026 and 2028. Beyond aircraft counts, South Korea's advantage lies in its command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance architecture. 4 E-737 airborne early warning and control aircraft provide near-continuous radar coverage of the entire peninsula. These platforms are tightly integrated with ground-based sensors, space-based assets, and United States Forces Korea networks, allowing the Republic of Korea Air Force to operate as a network-centric force rather than as a collection of individual squadrons. This enables faster detection, decision-making, and engagement cycles than any potential adversary to the north. Training further amplifies this advantage. South Korean fighter pilots typically log between 160 and 180 flight hours per year, comparable to North Atlantic Treaty Organization standards. This level of proficiency supports complex missions involving beyond visual range combat, electronic warfare, and coordinated strikes against time-sensitive targets. In practical terms, this means that South Korea's air power is designed not just to fight, but to dominate rapidly. North Korea's Air Force presents a stark contrast. It nominally fields around 500 to 550 combat aircraft, but most of these platforms belong to earlier generations. MiG-21s, MiG-23s, and early MiG-29 variants form the backbone of the force. Maintenance challenges, limited access to spare parts, and fuel constraints significantly reduce readiness. Open-source assessments commonly estimate that fewer than half of these aircraft are available for sustained combat operations at any given time. Pilot training levels reflect similar constraints. North Korean pilots are believed to average roughly 20 to 30 flight hours per year, an order of magnitude lower than their South Korean counterparts. This gap translates directly into reduced situational awareness, limited proficiency in complex maneuvers, and diminished effectiveness in beyond visual range engagements. North Korea also lacks modern airborne early warning platforms and relies on a fragmented radar network that is vulnerable to suppression. Recognizing these weaknesses, Pyongyang has not built its military strategy around contesting air superiority. Instead, it has invested heavily in what might be described as an air denial approach. Ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, long-range artillery, and increasingly unmanned aerial vehicles are intended to compensate for the inability to control the skies. The logic is straightforward. If the air cannot be won, it must be made too costly for the adversary to exploit freely, especially in the opening phase of a conflict. In a direct comparison, the outcome between South Korea and North Korea in the air domain is not difficult to predict. South Korea would almost certainly establish air superiority quickly, leveraging stealth platforms, precision-guided munitions, and superior command and control. The challenge would not be winning the air battle, but managing the intensity of operations. Neutralizing hundreds of hardened targets, missile launchers, and artillery positions in the first days of combat would consume large quantities of precision munitions. Sustaining this tempo would require robust logistics, stockpiles, and continued Allied support. This is where the broader regional context becomes decisive. China fundamentally alters the strategic equation even without direct involvement in a Korean conflict. The People's Liberation Army Air Force fields more than 2,000 combat aircraft, including several hundred advanced platforms such as the J-20 stealth fighter. More importantly, China has constructed a dense anti-access and area denial network encompassing long-range surface-to-air missiles, over-the-horizon radars, electronic warfare systems, and a vast inventory of conventional ballistic and cruise missiles. In a scenario where tensions on the peninsula escalate, Beijing does not need to deploy forces over Korea to influence the outcome. The mere presence of Chinese capabilities in Northeast Asia constrains the operational freedom of South Korean and Allied air forces. Airspace becomes more crowded, electromagnetic environments more contested, and escalation risks more complex to manage. For South Korea, this means that future air operations cannot be planned under the assumption of a permissive environment once North Korean defenses are suppressed. This strategic reality explains the importance of the KF-21 program beyond its technical specifications. The aircraft is not designed to outperform the F-35, but to complement it. By providing a domestically produced platform that can be built in significant numbers, South Korea reduces its dependence on foreign supply chains and enhances long-term sustainability. Planned production of between 120 and 140 aircraft would allow the Republic of Korea Air Force to replace older fighters while maintaining numerical strength. Unit costs are projected to be significantly lower than those of fifth-generation imports, making large-scale procurement economically viable over time. Equally important is the adaptability of the platform. The KF-21 is designed to evolve, with incremental upgrades to sensors, weapons integration, and stealth features. This approach aligns with South Korea's strategic shift from preparing solely for a short, intense conflict with North Korea to managing prolonged deterrence in a region shaped by great power competition. Taken together, these factors point to a clear conclusion. Against North Korea alone, South Korea's air superiority is overwhelming and likely decisive. Against the combined pressures of North Korea's asymmetric threats and China's regional power projection, the challenge becomes one of endurance, integration, and strategic balance. Air superiority is no longer a binary condition to be achieved and declared, but a dynamic state that must be maintained under constant pressure. Looking toward the early 2030s, the Republic of Korea Air Force is transforming from a force optimized for peninsula defense into one capable of managing regional air balance. This does not imply a desire for confrontation with China, but a recognition that credible deterrence requires resilience across multiple scenarios. In this sense, South Korea's air power strategy reflects a broader trend among middle powers, the pursuit of technological sophistication, operational integration, and strategic autonomy in an increasingly contested security environment.